Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the round of applause. I hope you're all energized. We have so much to get through. My name is Eleni Giakas. And of course, with me is Dimitrios Dosis. He is the president of Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Mastercard. Pleasure to be with you today. You might have noticed we both have Greek names. We're not going to talk about Mastercard. We're going to talk about the most exciting Greek islands to go on holiday. I'm just checking if you're all concentrating. You're concentrating. Yes, okay. I'm kidding. We're going to talk about Mastercard. All right, ladies and gentlemen, great to have you with us.
Sure.
Dimitri, what a pleasure to have you with us as well. Look, Mastercard is synonymous with innovation. It is synonymous with disruption. It has been a staple in our lives, and I think it's so pertinent that you're here, right, as we discuss what the new world or what the future is going to look like. I want to talk about some of the key trends that you're picking up that are exciting you and how you're choosing to respond to these.
Sure, great. And thanks, Eleni, for having me here. By the way, on the first row, we still have places back. It's a little bit like in school, don't be shy, come in the front, everybody
please
can
come
sit.
through. I can see people standing at the back. We'd love for you to join us in the front. We'll make you a VIP today, yeah?
And then at the end, we'll tell you which is the best island to go when you go to Greece.
Yes.
Anyway, so guys, listen, thanks for having me here. When I think about innovation and things that have happened, right, I think there are three things that have been evolving. First of all, we have seen technology evolving. I don't tell you anything new by saying that we're going to have over 80 million consumers doing 5G by 2025. That's happening. We saw this great presentation of this Pengus application. I don't even know if I understood half of it, but what I can say is this thing is happening, and it's going to be an over $300 billion opportunity just in MENA, this AI. So this is happening. So we are seeing technology evolving. That is great. At the same time, however, we see the consumer evolving, and I think this is, Eleni, where I see a huge impact. Okay, what our data tell us, our Mastercard data, we see that over 70% more online transactions are happening place. After COVID, we saw 70% an increase in online transactions. And what is more important, we see that 30% of those transactions are here to stay. They're not a one-off, guys. They're here to stay. So the consumer has changed, okay? Let me give you another fact. Last year, we saw 1 billion new transactions happening contactless. This is the year before we didn't have them. Within 1 year, we had 1 billion contactless transactions. So I think this is what you see in terms of the consumer evolving. And then obviously we as Mastercard, Eleni, are also evolving. When I joined Mastercard 17 years ago, this was an association of banks. And now we have moved to be a multi-rail company. We are co-creating with fintechs. We are working very strongly together with governments. Yeah. We're working with the Saudi government to drive their real-time payment system on the ground. We're working with the Dubai government on financial crime. We're working with Kazakhstan government to help them implement their own switch by still using our service. I think this evolution of really co-creating also with the government is going to be critical.
Very fascinating. I just have a question for the audience. Do you guys still carry a lot of cash with you? Raise hands. Do you carry cash? Yes, no? No, yes, a few.
Okay. And how many carry a Visa, a Mastercard? Yes, that's what I want to hear. Very good, thank you.
Fascinating. I have to say, since I've moved here, I'm your new consumer that you're talking about. I used to be cash, but also I was in South Africa, so totally different story. You mentioned so many interesting points there. I want to talk about some of the new technologies having the biggest impact on payments, and you're talking about contactless, but I want to talk about crypto. I want to talk about NFT. I want to talk about biometrics and how that's changing our patterns.
So listen, I think the two innovations I would call out is actually crypto and NFT. But here's the thing. We made an assessment of how people feel and see it. 96% know about crypto. They have heard about it. 75% heard about NFT. But 80% said they don't really want to engage in crypto because they don't know enough about it. So I think that if we want communities and consumers to engage more in crypto, we need to educate them. I think this is the one missing stone right now when it comes to NFT. And I think for us as an industry, we also need to make it easier. For example, we had a partnership recently with Coinbase to allow consumers to buy and sell NFTs. we partnered with the Saudi Arabia E-Com Association, E-Games Association, because we figured out that there's a huge amount of need for efficient payments. Guess what? Everyone in Saudi who's currently playing, the average spend per month of a gamer is 300 euros. It's a lot. So we believe that by 2030, this alone is a $7 billion spend. So when I think about crypto and NFT, these are the dynamics I see.
Okay, question again for the audience. I feel like we're doing a little mini survey here. Who engages in NFTs? Who's trading NFTs at the moment? Crypto?
Oh, a few more.
Ah, interesting. That's quite an interesting sort of barometer here. You're talking about working with some companies as well. What is the messaging from the people that you're working with, the companies that you're working with, that you find interesting?
So here's one lesson learned, guys, is that sometimes big companies like us, or we heard Cisco being here before that, we have the tendency to have great technology and then we throw it at other companies and just say, you know what, this is great, this is my Penguin AI, this is my Mastercard solution, just go and deal with it. What I figured out is that people need a little bit of hand-holding. I mean, we are in a B2B2C model, right? Which means that we need to educate our companies, fintechs we're working with, how to use technology. It's a bit of a hand-holding. Make sure that you know how to implement it, how to use it, how to drive value. It's very old-fashioned hand-holding, but it's very important. Otherwise, we'll miss, I think, one of the key impacts to drive impact through technology.
I want to talk about acquisitions for Mastercard, and one that really stands out is CipherTrace, and that, of course, is linked to crypto. Could you tell me about sort of the organic growth versus acquisitive growth, and what are you looking at when it comes to acquisitions?
Yeah, listen, one way to help the ecosystem and empower economies is actually to do exactly what His Excellency, Mr. Oman, is doing outside here, bring fintech community together, make sure that they get known and people invest in them, okay? We have also done investments in fintechs. One of them is an acquisition we recently did of a software called CipherTrace. It's actually quite cool because it gives you insights into 900 cryptocurrencies, which means that you as a bank, you as a regulator, you can very quickly understand, is this crypto transaction happening from a dodgy web page? Is it perhaps some AML considered there that I need to be aware? So it effectively provides transparency in a place where normally there's anonymity. And I think this is something which I think is important to make sure that once we roll out more crypto in governments, that we have some insights into what's happening so consumers, banks, and regulators feel more comfortable around it.
And that's such a good point, right? Because I think the whole thing with crypto was sort of deregulated. We don't know what central banks are going to be doing. We don't, in terms of the payment platforms. But once Mastercard comes in or any other payment platform comes in and almost formalizes the process, that kind of changes the game with the use of crypto. Do you see crypto being quite significant in your future?
Listen, it is definitely, and I think we came a long way because at the beginning there was, as across many industry players, denial. But I think this is a technology that is there to stay, blockchain, and I think the crypto applications are there.
Let's talk about emerging markets, the vulnerable. And I mean, this is part of your portfolio, right? And I mentioned I'm from South Africa. Some of the most exciting fintech solutions are born out of the emerging market space. And we're even seeing some exciting stuff happening in South America. What trends are you seeing in the African market for yourself, and also in Middle East that is showing progress in terms of banking the unbanked, and focusing on making sure that there's financial literacy and getting people that would otherwise be excluded from the system to finally be included?
Funny enough, you mentioned South Africa, because I was just in Cape Town 2 weeks ago, and I met with the fintech community, and I was just blown away by the interaction model and the degree of innovation that fintechs, let's say, have in Africa, which I think is critical. Now, globally, we have 1.4 billion mobile wallets, okay? And guess what? In our region, across MENA and Africa, we have 50% of the mobile wallet. So this is the market where this is happening, which, let's say, for us, and I don't know if there is any telco provider player in this market, I think telcos play a critical role in financial inclusion. They are the forefront of this. Now, the innovation, you called me about the innovation. I think there are two angles. First of all, we need to make sure that those mobile wallets are interoperational. Right now you have, if you want piecemeal pieces, you have closed-loop wallets. I think making those interoperable is critical for the industry. Otherwise, you will have island solutions and you won't have the right efficiencies. That's number one. Number two is, you need through those wallets also to drive inclusion for the consumer. Consumer doesn't end by only connecting them. So I listened very carefully to what the gentleman from Cisco correctly said. It's about connecting people to drive inclusion. But that's only the first step, guys. Once you have connected consumers, you need to make sure you also do something for their financial benefit, financial advantage, financial security. I came to Dubai just very recently in December with my family, and I must admit, I felt very included in this beautiful country. It was quick, efficient, and I felt very quickly included. That's great. Now,
more so than Germany?
From Germany, I know, and normally people say that Germans are efficient. You know what? No, no, no. This country is efficient. So,
I had the same experience.
Efficient.
I mean, it's super efficient. I was like, what is going on? Why is everything happening so quickly?
Super efficient, super efficient. So this is going on. So I think the next click in inclusion is, we have in this country, in other countries across the whole region, we have a lot of people who send money back home, remittances, okay?
Yeah.
I think this is an area where, by using technology, we can become more efficient. I've seen long queues and people sending their money and paying 7-8%. That's not okay. I think that financial inclusion also means making the money flow efficient, taking intermediaries out, making sure that people can have other experiences rather than queuing. So I think this is something where I see inclusion going the next step. I think we have connected the people very well. Now we need to make sure we also include them in the financial benefits.
You know, honestly, this remittances issue is fascinating, and the money that is being made sort of by the brokers. Do you believe that you're able to bring down the cost of this?
Okay.
Because it's the most vulnerable, right? It's the most vulnerable people that need to send money back home, and it plays a big role in sort of money transfer globally. This isn't just a Middle East issue.
Yeah, I don't think there's any bad intention. It's just inefficiency in the system. I mean, today somebody pays 7, 8, 9% to send a remittance back home. But it's not because somebody, let's say, makes unorthodox profits. It's just that you need to go through correspondent banks, 3 or 4 correspondent banks, and each of them is charging something. It's inefficient. I think there are more efficient ways to connect the sender and the receiver of a transaction. And this is something where we as an industry, as a payment industry, not only Mastercard, but also us, we're working very closely with governments, central banks, and players in the economy to make that happen.
How far are we away from sort of a new innovation within that space, do you think?
I think we're very close. Actually, we're at the verge of executing better solutions there.
That's very exciting. So when we're here next year and we talk again, we'll be asking you about how well it's doing. You also mentioned telcos, and it's funny because I think the one thing, you know, when I started my career sort of in 2005, everyone was talking about how a mobile phone is going to change everyone's life in Africa because everyone has access to a mobile phone. But that goes for all of us, no matter which market you're in, because you as a bank or a payment platform or whatever can connect with a consumer through the mobile phone. You said the relationship with telcos is going to be absolutely vital, and it reminds me of when M-Pesa was born in Kenya. The central bank was like, whoa, here's a telco dealing with billions of dollars of transactions, and now a telco is suddenly becoming a bank. How do you see that sort of relationship ecosystem evolving?
Listen, one of the key elements that we need to make sure in the financial sector is trust, okay? And trust starts from formal processes like having A&M scans, making sure that we have good cybersecurity protocols in place. By the way, I'm really fascinated that UAE and Saudi, both countries, are top 10 in the global cybersecurity score. So they're doing very, very well. I think we have the right things, the right assets in place in this country, which is really good to see. But it goes above and beyond this, which means that we need to make sure that we also call out bad behaviors. I think something across all of us when we see something in the system. I mean, for us it's the payment system, but it's also in the other ways of connecting people. If we see bad behavior, bad actors, I think we need to call it out, because if you don't have trust in the system you operate in, over long term, you will fail. That's why I think this is so critical, Eleni.
I'm going to go a bit rogue here. I've got another question for you. How many of you have had a call from the central bank telling you you need to change your details or you need to give everyone your details on the phone? Fraudsters. Guys, I'm getting them all the time.
I had it as well.
I'm like, I come from South Africa, I've never had these calls, these fraud calls, and actually I almost got duped the first time. I was like, what is going on here? And you're talking about bad actors. Let's be real here. When it comes to fraud or cybersecurity protections, I mean, is it a space that you're very worried about? Because we're hearing that there's been an increase in breaches lately, and how concerned would you say?
Listen, listen, when it comes to cyber, I'm always concerned, but the question is, what can we do? I think, first of all, again, I think this country where we are, plus how we are doing extremely well. I think there is great technology at play.
Yeah.
The second thing is we need to co-create as global players, let's say, with the local authorities. We do, for example, work with the Dubai Financial Services, let's say, authority to co-create, let's say, cybersecurity solutions by leveraging what we do globally at Mastercard. I think that's the second step. And then the third step is try also to give the players a safety net. Okay, let me give you an example. Today, if you are a small, medium business enterprise and you want to get an insurance for cybercrime, it is nearly impossible to get it because the premium for cybersecurity insurance is ridiculously high. The cyber insurers out there, they cannot really underwrite this insurance because they don't know how much risk the SME bears with them. That's not okay. So what we're trying to do, and again, we're doing it in partnership with the governments, and the central banks and data we see in the ecosystem, we are providing a score back to the insurer. We're telling him, for example, we have done an external threat assessment of this company. We did a cyber tech simulation that we're using our tools, and it showed that score, high score, low score, mediocre score. This is very important for the insurer to then underwrite an insurance policy for cyber. I'm just bringing this example because it really adds value in the ecosystem by getting some of the inefficiencies out.
That's really fascinating. I mean, when you mentioned SMEs, because they are the most vulnerable, right? What are you doing within the SME space? I know you have a lot of projects and you have a lot of products for SMEs to make life easier, more efficient, and more plugged into a greater ecosystem.
Listen, when it comes to SME, I think the first target, and we called it out 2 years ago, we want to financially include 50 million SMEs globally, okay, of which 25 we want to have women entrepreneurs. This is something where we feel very strong about as a company, and we have gone a long way to connecting SMEs. That's the first step. The second step is to provide them services, like the cyber insurance, let's say, support I called out, but it doesn't end there. One of the biggest problems right now of SMEs is they do not get adequate lending. Nobody is lending to them, or people are only subpar lending to them. And the problem is the same as on the cyber insurance example I gave. People don't know the SMEs very well. But guess what? By leveraging some data, you can actually do it. For example, we know how many customers go to an SME and how recurring they are, because we see the credit card or debit card transaction happening. So we can very well go back with this data to the bank and tell them, you know what, this SME has a very highly recurring customer base, which means he's not so risky.
So you've got data on your
Exactly,
on this SME.
we have data on the SME. By the way, it's not our data, it's the consumer's data, but we are allowing to be using them, which means that now we give this data point back to the lender, and they can provide a nicely and decently priced lending offer to the SME. This is happening.
Do the lenders, I was going to say, do the lenders actually take this data and use it? Do the lenders then, do the banks take this data and then apply it when they're working with, a consumer that doesn't have a credit score,
Yeah, then they don't take data, they take a score that we provide them, and based on the score, they are allowed to then provide a lending decision.
That's fascinating. I want to talk about sort of how Mastercard has been not forced to evolve. I think we've all been forced to change and evolve and think about how technology is going to impact us, and we've had to disrupt ourselves. Mastercard has also had to think about those disruptive technologies and frankly had to be at the forefront of those technologies. What would you say that recipe is, that magic recipe to keep up with the times, to keep up with the startups and the small guys that are sitting in their rooms, coming up with the next big thing, in front of their laptops, and you just don't know what's going to come our way tomorrow?
Listen, we went a long way. As I said from the beginning, being a banking association, of being now a true multi-rail company that has a strong focus on services and on new networks like open banking, which is happening around the world, or on digital identity. But if you ask me, I think the centerpiece of where we change the culture in our company, and I think it's something where many will follow, I think we're on a journey, is when it comes to data. I think all around today, we speak about data. We speak about data when it comes to crypto. We speak about data when it comes to the metaverse. The fundamental thinking, however, is that, oh, we have this data and then we use those data. But that's a problem. That's not the right thing to think about, because it's not Mastercard's data. It's not the data of your company. You're from which company? Yeah. Excellent. So you see, you also do analytics. I kind of noticed it. So this data that you are performing your analytics and aggregate on, this is not your data. It's also not Mastercard's data. At the end of the day, it is the consumer's data. It's the consumer who has produced them. So the consumer owns its data. And the consumer effectively should also benefit from its data, and we as industry should make sure it stays secured. It's a fundamental change, guys, because if we believe that it's the consumer's data, then we need to do more. We need to innovate differently, and we need to make sure innovation pays off for the consumer. I think this is probably the most fundamental change that we're undergoing right now.
You know, if you'd asked me maybe 10 or 15 years ago, would I be able to make payments through my mobile phone by just tapping? I'd be like, wow, this is very new age. Maybe I'm a bit old school. If I had to say to you, describe what the future of payments would look like, Dimi, what would your answer be? How do you envisage this?
So, here comes the truth on payments. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and says, oh, how do I pay my coffee? I think payment is something that happens, okay? Yeah. It is something that should be smooth and not, let's say, intentional. And we have understood this, which means that we are trying to take out any friction in the payments process. A great example is a technology we introduced earlier this year, and it will come to this region, which is biometric checkout. We call it checkout with a smile. So instead of going there, taking your card, your mobile, face recognition, putting in OTPs, you just smile, and it takes your face, and that's it. Now, it took us a little bit longer to get this done because we wanted to make sure that it's secure and people feel good. But down the road, I see this automated way of checking out the future. I think this is where the journey is going, Eleni.
So don't change your face, yeah? Keep the smile the same. We'll get your biometrics done if you change your face a bit. I mean, it's been really illuminating. We're getting close to the end. I've got a couple of questions that I think are on everyone's minds. How does the changing geopolitical environment affect you and what you do in your innovations? Does it make you more agile? Are you concerned about the future? Are you concerned about it impacting the things that you do on a daily basis?
Listen, a lot of things have happened this year, right? I mean, Everybody knows the geopolitical setup we're in. Am I concerned? No, I'm not concerned, because I think that, and I'm taking a phrase that His Excellency quoted at the beginning, it is this spark in the eyes. I see more spark in the eyes lately. I see people who have been impacting, let's say, across Eastern Europe, which is part of our region here, having spark. They have passion to get something done, either in their country, where they came from, or when they go outside and work from somewhere else. So I'm actually quite positive when it comes to the energy I'm sensing around the table.
But it has impacted you, the geopolitical...
Oh, of course. Listen, I mean, I don't think there's any company who hasn't been geopolitically impacted by what has happened in Eastern Europe. But when it comes to the people, I see a high degree of energy there. And if you want, I think the right word is resiliency. There's resiliency, which translates into looking forward.
Okay, we've got about 40 seconds left. So let's talk Greek islands.
Greek islands.
No, I'm being real. Really, where do we go? It was one of the best destinations. We're both Greek, and I think, and I love Greece as an example because it was a cash-based economy. And by the way, when I went there for the first time in 2008, if you didn't have cash, you couldn't do anything. Now everything is all about cards. How do you see these cash-based economies generally globally shifting to more electronic. Do you think we've seen a huge shift over the past
It's
while?
happening, guys. I mean, listen, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, we now had 70% more online transactions. This used to be POS transactions that happened also a lot in cash. So there is a significant move through COVID to be cashless, okay?
Yeah.
There are still going to be pockets where cash will be used, that's fine, but I think the big tailwind we have as an industry, we're going into more efficient forms, and they can be account-to-account based, ACH based, card based. So I think cash is rather declining globally.
Cash is not king anymore. Your iPhone is, right? So you can just tap. Thank you so much, Dimi, for your time. Thank you for your insight. It was such a pleasure, and welcome to Dubai. I've been here a year. You've been here 7 months, and it's just an incredible place to be. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to this. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. A round of applause for my incredible guest,
Thank you.
Dimitrios. Dosis.
Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you.
Thank you.